Welcome to Sistery History, the podcast where we two sisters discuss a historical event or experience, but instead of facts and figures, we focus on the senses to offer a different perspective on things. In each episode, we will take a few historical primary sources and have a light-hearted chat about the sounds, smells, tastes, you get the idea. I'm little sister Caroline.
I'm big sister Laura.
We hope you'll find out something interesting you didn't know before, or perhaps you'll think about something in a different way. But mostly, we'd love you to have fun.
Welcome to Season 2, Episode 3, What Ails Thee? Some of us might be under the illusion that ancient medicine was crude and ineffective. Could sneezing really be deemed a robust contraceptive technique? It's true that many beliefs advanced by physicians of this time have long since been debunked, such as humoral theory, the idea that the body was made up of 4 humours that had to be in balance if the person was to be healthy, and miasma theory, that disease was caused by polluted air. But it's also true that many of their approaches were extremely sensible and remain sound advice endorsed by today's medical experts. The importance of diet and exercise, the appreciation of natural remedies, and the concept of balance, getting enough sleep, not drinking too much, etc. So what did the Greeks do when they got sick? Let's find out. Caroline, would you have been a regular visitor to the physician if you were kicking around in ancient Greece?
I think it's fair to say that I probably would have been a regular at the sanctuary or seeking some kind of herbal advice from a wise woman.
Okay, yeah, I think that's reasonable.
I probably wouldn't have made it past childhood, to be honest.
Oh, no.
Sorry. One of the sources that we have here today, though, might help me with my ailments.
Okay.
We've got Hippocrates, don't we?
We do, twice.
We're going to be so healthy at the end of this.
Hippocrates was a Greek physician called the father of medicine. He was operating in the 5th century BCE and reputedly would taste his patients' samples.
Good for him.
Yeah. We also have Aristophanes, who we had last week.
They do say laughter is the best medicine, so he's great to have along.
True, yes. Athenian comic poet and playwright. Not very keen on oracle mongers. Also, he was kicking around in the 5th century BCE. And I have an archaeological source today, which is a cure inscription from Epidaurus, and it's written on a stone tablet, mid-4th century BCE.
Oh, that sounds interesting. Why don't we start with your cure inscription then?
Okay, sure. Euphanes, a boy from Epidaurus, suffering from a kidney stone. He slept in the sanctuary of Asclepieion. During the night, it seemed to him that the god Asclepieion stood by him and asked, "What will you give me if I cure you?" The boy answered, 10 dice. The god laughed and said that he would cure him. When the day came, the boy walked out, healed.
I like that. I like that Asclepieion just went, yeah, all right, that sounds great.
You initially think, come on, you're a god, this is your job, you shouldn't be asking for favours. But he's happy with the 10 dice, so he's reasonable.
Well, you say that, Laura, but isn't it all about give and take, the Greek relationship with the gods?
It is, it's true, and we'll come on to a little bit of that later. So these cure inscriptions are recounting people's visits to the temple and the cures that they received as a result. In this particular one, we're talking about dream incubation. So the process of you go to the temple of Asclepieion, Asclepieion being the god of healing, you sleep there overnight, and the god is either going to A, heal you in your dream so that you wake up and you're magically healed.
Perfect.
Great. Or the other option is that the god can talk to you in your dream. So you're hearing the words of the god and he's giving you a cure. He's telling you what to do. So he can give you some instructions. In this example, we've got a slight differentiation of these two options because the god isn't actively doing anything to relieve the kidney stone, nor is he giving Euphanes a list of instructions to follow. But he is saying, I'll do a deal with you. You give me some dice? Yeah, I'll cure you. So there's still that interaction with the god. The healing is happening through the communication somehow with the god, whether that be a silent communication through action or some sort of verbal interaction.
I must say, as one who has had a kidney stone, had I had the option of giving a god 10 dice, I would totally have taken it.
You'd have gone with that. On the subject of recompense, though, and you mentioned at the beginning that this is an important part of the give and take, the idea of anatomical votives is something that comes up a lot in the sources. And anatomical votives are likenesses of body parts, small figurines, crafted from usually terracotta clay, but less often you might have wood or wax or marble or bronze used, depends how posh you want to go. Loads of these have been found, especially at archaeological sites and ancient healing centres, temples of Asclepios, for example. There's indications of mass production of these, so on a big scale. So it suggests that lots of people were using them, these little figurines. And the idea was that you would buy one that corresponded to the malady that you had at the time and the ailment that you wanted resolved. So if you had a hurt foot, you buy one that's in the shape of a foot.
Could you buy any body part?
There were many on offer. So there were ones I've come across, definitely hands and feet. Eyes, ears, nose, teeth, willies, wombs, vulvas.
Blimey.
I know.
Imagine having a little marble vulva.
I know.
Cute.
You're not buying these as souvenirs. So it's not a case of, oh, remember that time I had piles and we went to the Temple of Asclepius. Wasn't it lovely?
God, can you buy piles?
You could probably buy
Can you
butter. But this is not why you're buying an anatomical votive. You're buying it as an offering. So...
I've just got this image in my head of you going up to the man at the shop saying, "Can I have some buttocks, please?" But you might be a bit embarrassed about which ailment you have, so you might want to be subtle about it and make him put it in the bag pretty damn quick.
Yes, or you could say in a loud voice, "Can I have some ears, please?" And then whisper, "Buttocks."
Please carry on.
Yes, so these were offerings that you will be leaving at the temple. And
As a thank you for curing.
A thank you, either a thank you for curing my ailment or please cure my ailment, desperation kind of plea.
I see. So it's either pre or post.
Yes, they could be pre or post. But the reason that they're so specifically shaped is that you'll want to give the god very clear instructions. You're fixing this bit, not any other bit, this bit.
It's like when people draw on which leg you need to have amputated before surgery. Can we just make sure that it's this one you're doing, please?
Mm-hmm. You'd leave these at the temple. They would often have little holes in them, so they could be hung up.
Oh, that's space saving.
It is. Also quite freaky, potentially. Walking into a temple room and then there's just loads of hanging penises and legs and
piles,
buttocks everywhere. Quite freaky. Jiggling in the wind. Who knows?
Wowzers.
Sexual organs were actually very common. We found lots of these.
Is this maybe fertility or?
Yes, maybe problems in the trouser department. Who knows?
Chlamydia.
Potentially. The question is, Caroline, did they work?
The votives?
What do you reckon?
I mean, I'm going to say yes.
Okay.
And my theory behind it, well, Epidaurus was running for at least 800 years. So if it wasn't working, people wouldn't have gone
there. No, maybe they were just jumping on the bandwagon.
It's a long time to be jumping on a bandwagon.
That is true. And the amount that have been found really does suggest that even if they weren't working, people thought they did. And that's the important thing.
That's a good point, isn't it? Because with anything to do with ancient Greece, trying to remove religion from daily life is just kind of impossible. You could go to a doctor or you could go to a healing sanctuary. Maybe you could do a mix of both. What you could do is ask the gods which doctor to use.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's evidence of that.
I think the proximity to the gods is the important thing, isn't it? The idea that the closer you are, the more potent things are, or the cure is, or the potential is.
That brings me ever so nicely then onto my first extract, which is Aristophanes. This is Wealth, the play Wealth, Act 2 specifically. But just to give you a little bit of context, Wealth has been personified in this play as blind. So that's why there are poor people and there are rich people in the world, because wealth cannot see to give things out equally, and people are undeserving, then they shouldn't be rich, whereas people who are deserving should be rich, that kind of thing.
Okay, so things are all up in the air because you can't see properly.
Exactly. That is the reason for the lack of equality in the world, because wealth is blind.
I like that analogy.
At the end of Act 1, it has been decided that we need to cure Wealth of his blindness, so we need to take him to the Temple of Asclepius. Therefore, what they do is they say, right, we're going to take Wealth off to spend the night in the Temple of Asclepius. Let's put him in the right clothes and let's give him a suppliant's olive branch to hold. So that scene closes with him being dressed and a suppliant's olive branch in his hand.
What's the relevance of the olive branch?
It's a visual representation that he's going to the sanctuary.
Okay.
Then we open Act 2. Everything's gone great. He's gone to the sanctuary and he's been cured of his blindness.
Yay!
So let me read to you. First of all, we took him to the sea and gave him a bathe. Then we entered the sacred precinct. We offered cakes and incense at the altar. And then we put Wealth to bed in the proper manner and prepared rough and ready mattresses for ourselves.
Were there any other patients there?
Yes, there was Neoclides, the blind politician, whom no sighted man can outdo in thieving, and there were a great many others with all kinds of diseases. Anyway, the temple servant put out all the lamps and told us to go to sleep, warning us to remain silent if we heard any noise. What you have there is a little bit of a rundown of what happens when you get to the temple. I want to consider sight with this extract. First of all, we've got a blind person being cured, so he doesn't have sight, right?
Here we've got another example of dream incubation, haven't we?
That's correct.
Nice.
What's happening is he first gets bathed and then he is dressed in these specific clothes. So what's quite nice about everyone at this healing sanctuary is that it's a combined, united experience. You're going through these steps, the process of pilgrimage, getting there, hiking there. You've got the ritual bathing, abstinence, so you wouldn't be able to eat certain foods or have sexual intercourse. Then you've got the sacrifice, so you would have seen incense drifting up to the heavens, interacting with the god in that way.
There are lots of parallels with going to the temple, aren't there? Lots of similarities in terms of those sorts of rituals
and bathing and being pure and ready for it. Very holistic approach. Then you've got the incubation. This is where he got ready and then slept on the floor of the abaton in the temple, waiting for the god to come and visit him in a dream. So again, even though Wealth can't see, he is still visited visually by the god in a dream. As per our divination episode, the direct interaction with the gods is kind of seen as the best form of divination, isn't it? So the fact that the god is talking directly to you, even though it's in a dream, is still puts it up there. Yeah. The other thing about being at the sanctuary is you're surrounded in this, again, serene kind of setting. There are snakes everywhere because there are sacred snakes.
Yes.
Non-venomous. So that's odd, just snakes slithering around everywhere. And apparently there were dogs everywhere too, which were encouraged to lick your wounds.
Yes, there was a lot of wound licking, wasn't there?
Wound licking.
Yes, and snakes apparently would slither over you as you slept during your dream incubation.
Everyone's dressed the same. Everyone's going through the same movements. They're progressing around the sanctuary in the same way. And this offers a kind of reassurance to you that everyone's in this together. There are set ways of doing things. And therefore, the chaos that your sickness has caused is all being controlled by going through these steps, doing and seeing things in a certain order.
So although it's quite otherworldly in a lot of senses, the structure is comforting.
Correct. And what you can also see is what you've mentioned, these cure tablets, the iamata, which would have been on display all over the sanctuary, as well as the votive offerings of hands and feet and bums. Which would have been on display all over the sanctuary, listing out people who've been cured.
So it's a great PR method, isn't it?
Fantastic PR. It's going, if you do these things, if you are a good pilgrim and do all these things and say all the things and see all the things in the right way, you're going to be just like these people here. So some of these cure tablets have very random things such as hair loss, paralysis, sterility. You could go for any reason and still be treated by the god. And there must be some kind of reassurance to see all of these examples of people who have been cured before you.
Yes, there must have been that feeling of, this is the right place to be, just got to go through the steps, bring enough dice, and I'm going to be okay.
We also have in the extract a blind politician mentioned.
I can see now why you said that Aristophanes didn't like politicians.
He doesn't like politicians. He's basically saying he's a big thief. The other thing about going to the sanctuary is that it's open to everyone. It's open to the rich and poor alike. You've got a cheating rich politician along with Wealth who has no money whatsoever. They have to go to the sanctuary. It's mentioned previously in the play, actually. they have to go to the sanctuary because they can't afford a doctor. They say something akin to, we have no money, therefore there is no doctor. So it's the inclusivity of going to the temple, and they sacrificed incense and cakes and things like that. But Asclepius, his animal of choice to be sacrificed to him was a cock, very inexpensive, very cheap, and therefore very inclusive.
Okay, yeah. So all of those things, incense, cake, chickens, they're all available. So you don't have to go and get the finest bull or lots of gold coins or anything like that. It's all accessible.
Correct.
Like it.
And although essentially all gods could heal, but some were healing specialists, like Asclepius, right? And
But
Apollo.
all gods heal.
Any god can
I
heal,
did not know that.
but you might want to go to a specialist one.
Asclepius had 5 daughters, and they were all well versed in the arts of healing.
That's why he's a good one to go to.
Yeah. So Panacea was the goddess of cures, just all of them, apparently. And then Hygeia, the goddess of disease prevention.
Nice. The sanctuary of Zeus and Dione at Dodona were well known for fertility. Heracles prevented epidemics.
Did he?
Apparently.
Could have done with him a couple of years ago.
And then Apollo is an odd one because he both cures disease and then brings plague. So he's a bit of an enigma.
Alongside the healing centres and the temples of Asclepius, by the 5th century, we've got Hippocrates in the mix. And Hippocrates is more about observation and symptoms, thinking about different types of patients and how that could impact things, and different treatments as well, depending on what type of patient you were. Greek medicine wasn't a standard set of practices and standards as we would understand it today, but a mixture of beliefs and types of practitioners and methods. So you've got the healing centres and temples, which we've already covered. We've got things like root cutters and drug sellers in the marketplace, peddling their wares. You've got doctors travelling around, midwives, surgeons who would be specifically about setting bones, doing amputations, and physicians who are treating patients with regimens. So loads of stuff all mixed together, but also really still closely allied with religion.
Sounds like a great time to talk about your Hippocrates source then.
It does, doesn't it? My second extract is from Hippocrates' work, Regimen on Health, and I'm going to be considering taste in this one. Emetics should be employed thus. People who are not thin should take an emetic whilst fasting, after running or walking quickly in the middle of the day. Let the emetic consist of half a cotyle of hyssop, compounded with a coerce of water, and let the patient drink this, pouring in vinegar and adding salt to make the mixture as agreeable as possible. Let them drink it slowly at first, and then more quickly. Thinner and weaker people should partake of food before the emetic in the following way. Always after bathing in hot water, let the patient drink a cotyle of neat wine, and let them take food of all sorts without drinking either during or after the meal. But after waiting enough time to walk 10 stades, give them a mixture of 3 wines, dry, sweet, and acid. At first, drunk neat and taken in small sips at long intervals, then more diluted, more quickly, and in larger quantities.
I've got so many things to talk about here. First of all, the units of measurement.
A cotyle is a cup.
Okay.
A coerce is a small pouring vessel.
Fine.
A stade is a distance of 180 metres. That's the distance of a standard foot race.
Right.
And hyssop is a herb, common in medicine, and also, good tip, handy as an insect repellent.
Oh, okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
Second question. Adding salt and vinegar to make it taste nice.
I know. Works on a crisp, may not work in a drink. Yeah, I queried that one as well.
Probably don't want either of them, though.
No, it's not a good advert for the taste of hyssop, is it, if you're having to add salt and vinegar to make it taste?
What does hyssop taste like?
Worse than salt and vinegar.
Wow.
Emetics are used for purging. So this is when you need to evacuate your body somehow. So these are specific instructions that Hippocrates is given. He's allowing for 2 different types of patient, the larger and the smaller.
Right.
And he's given very specific instructions to these 2 types of patient as to what they can consume. All of those instructions, they were about whether things were diluted, whether it was acid, or whether it was dry or sweet, how quickly you consumed those things, and also whether you could fast or whether you ate food. So it's all about what you're consuming. And they're very, very different sets of instructions for those two types of people. And I want to know how on earth he came to these conclusions.
I want to know how quickly it takes to walk a stave.
I mean, well, that's subjective, isn't it? 180 metres. I'm a brisk walker. I could crack that out quite quickly, but
an ambler might take some time.
Someone who's been at the temple and has got a hurty foot, not going to be as quick. The thinner, weaker person is definitely getting the best deal. They can have, I've counted, at least 2 glasses of wine and any sort of food they like.
The other person can't
have any food.
No.
And they've just got to do the salt and vinegar to taste trick and hope for the best.
God, pays to be thin and beautiful.
So the idea is what's going into the body is very important. It is a much more scientific approach. Whether it's accurate, who on earth knows? It sounds quite elaborate and also sounds like he would have gone through quite a lot of trial and error to reach these conclusions. But perhaps, arguably, it's more reliable than taking a figurine of your buttocks to the temple and hoping for the best.
Oh, arguably. I know which I'd rather. With a lot of the Hippocratic works, though, it does seem to come down to diet first. Then, if anything goes wrong, then maybe some drugs. And then last resort is surgery. They're very focused on what people are eating and how they're eating it and when they're eating it.
Yes, definitely. Herbal medicine was big business. There were root cutters and drug sellers who would be a frequent fixture in the marketplaces. Although they were viewed with some suspicion, it seems. I found an extract from Theophrastus.
Are you doing a sneaky third extract, Laura?
Well...
Go on then.
Who wrote an inquiry into plants. Some of the things that drug sellers and root cutters say are reasonable enough, but sometimes they make such exaggerated claims. It seems incredibly far-fetched that, for example, peony should be dug up only at night for fear that if a person is seen by a woodpecker whilst gathering the flowers, he risks going blind. And if he is seen by a woodpecker whilst cutting the roots, he may suffer a prolapsed anus.
No.
Yes.
There is no connection between any of those. How often do you see a woodpecker?
I wouldn't be able to identify one if I did see one.
Actually, I did see one the other day.
Did you?
Oh, Lord, what might happen to me?
Well, let's just hope it's not option B. But the idea was that these people were everywhere. It was really common. He's even written a book, Inquiry into Plants. Herbal medicine is big business. But these people, although they're knowledgeable, they're still deemed as a little bit on the edge and a little bit dodgy. What's your Hippocrates extract then?
I've got On the Nature of Women 3. When her womb moves towards her liver, she suddenly loses her voice and her teeth chatter and her colouring turns dark. This condition can occur suddenly while she is still in good health. The problem particularly affects old maids and widows, young women who have been widowed after having had children. When this condition occurs, push your hand down below her liver and tie a bandage below her ribs. Open her mouth and pour in very sweet scented wine. Put applications on her nostrils and burn foul scented vapours below her womb.
Well, it sounded nice initially with the sweet scented wine, but the nostrils and the womb part, I'm not on board with.
Quite horrible, isn't it? And if I'm honest, if this was being administered to me, or my choice was to have a lovely lie down in a temple overnight in the holistic sanctuary spa, I think I'm going to go and have a little lie down.
Yeah. You get the wine, presumably to numb your senses somewhat before the onslaught of things being stuffed up your nostrils and wafted at your undercarriage.
This is the idea of essentially anything that goes wrong with a woman is down to her womb, the wandering womb. It's a catch-all that seemed to be used by the Hippocratic doctors as a kind of, well, we don't know what's wrong with her, so it's probably her womb. Whatever is wrong, it's always down to the womb. In this case, there is some kind of liver issue. There's this idea that there is a tube connecting the vagina and the nostrils. And as we've seen with the divination episode, we had the Pythia sitting over the tripod.
Yes, with the crack in the ground.
With the fumes coming up through the crack in the ground. Then these fumes would enter her body, travel up through this tube or hodos, and then come out. So the god would literally travel through her and then come out of her mouth.
Wow.
because of this interconnecting tube between the two things.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, in this example, what we see is if you use nice smells at one end and bad smells at the other end, you're tempting the womb back into the right position.
Oh, okay.
You see? So here she had nice smells on her nose and bad smelling fumigations under her. Could also work in reverse, right? So you could then use bad smells at your nose and sweet smelling smells
down below. Yes.
And then it would go the other way.
So it all depended where the womb was at that given point and where we needed to tempt the womb back to.
Correct.
Okay.
It needed to be shifted slightly.
Okay, so that's quite an intricate process. How do they know how much smell to administer?
I mean, how long is a piece of string? It's semi-ridiculous. No, it's completely ridiculous. The men didn't have to do this, of course. This was all the women who are being subjected to the smells. I mean, it would be okay, wouldn't it, if you got the nice smelling option at the nose.
Rose petals more acceptable.
Yeah, but just my luck. I'm sure it would be always, let's put some cow poo under her nose, some rose hip under her back.
Well, that wouldn't encourage you to go and visit the physician, would it?
Because you can have both, right? This was a world where one wasn't better than the other. It's absolutely down to you what you want to do. You could go and see the old wise woman in the village. You could ask your aunt. You could go and get some root cuttings. The doctor, if you could afford it, or you could go to the sanctuary to put your lot in with the gods. It's completely down to you what you wanted to do. And there was no hierarchy. What is better?
Hedge your bets, do them all.
There are also instances where the doctors, the male doctors, are saying that the female patients don't really want to interact with them because they're embarrassed or they're ashamed or they're ignorant. And you can completely see why somebody would pick a less embarrassing dream with the god over interacting with a male physician who you might not necessarily want to talk to you because you're embarrassed.
Yeah.
Or he's making you feel ashamed in some way, something like that.
Or what the inevitable diagnosis is going to be.
Yeah.
It's the womb again.
It's the old womb again. Let's put some lavender in your pants. Even though that does actually sound
sit on some lavender.
Yeah. Then you get to interact directly with the god as well.
Yeah, going back to that proximity and the direct access, the direct conversation with the god.
I mean, it's probably all down to the fact that these male doctors didn't really know what was going on in female bodies. But there were plenty of female physicians that you could consult, especially when it came to childbirth and things like that. Midwives.
And midwives would usually be female, wouldn't they? Or always.
Yes, and there's plenty of funerary votives talking about female midwives, female physicians.
Like it. I do have a nice multi-sensory extract for you. So that will take my count to 4, which I know is very, very greedy.
It's ridiculous, but it does mean we don't end on womb fumigations.
There we go. This is from Hippocrates again on dreams. When the body is asleep and at rest, the soul is awake and performs all the acts of the body. The soul sees what is visible, hears what is audible, walks, touches, feels pain, ponders. In summary, all the functions of the body and soul are performed by the soul during sleep. Whoever, therefore, knows how to interpret these acts knows the great part of wisdom.
Beautiful.
Neat, huh? How about a quiz?
No.
Have you got plans?
No, it's fine. It's just... Who have I got? I've got Hippocrates. If it's on medicine, I've got Hippocrates on my team. Okay, let's do it.
Okay. Today's quiz, match the cure to the ailment.
Excellent. Come on, Hippocrates. We've got this.
I will read you 6 ailments, and then I will read you 6 cures.
Okay.
And I'd like you to match them. Number 1, cold/flu. Number 2, diarrhea. 3, hemorrhoids. 4, acne or other skin complaints. 5, migraine. 6, scars. Okay, so they are your 6 ailments. Your 6 cures. A, burning with hot irons. B, mint. C, honey and cinnamon. D, crocodile dung. E, olive oil and crushed olive leaves. F, peony root.
I've had most of these. Let's start with cold and flu. Honey and cinnamon. Diarrhea, mint. Hemorrhoids, burning with hot irons. Acne and skin complaints, olive oil and crushed olive leaves. Migraine, crocodile dung. And scars, peony root.
Okay, you got the first one correct. So cold and flu, honey and cinnamon. For diarrhea, it is not mint, it is peony root, preferably not harvested in the presence of a woodpecker. Number 3, hemorrhoids, you chose burning with hot irons, which is absolutely correct.
Painful.
Acne and skin complaints, you went with olive oil and crushed olive leaves, which was correct. Migraine, you went with crocodile dung, not correct. That was the mint. And for scars, you chose peony root, and I'm afraid not. It was the crocodile dung.
Come on, Hippocrates. I thought you wrote this.
Not all of those were taken from Hippocrates,
Oh, I see.
so you can't blame them. But 3 out of 6, that's pretty good. Average.
That's what they call me.
Average Caroline.
Thank you for joining us on this episode about Greek medicine. And now you know what to do if you find some crocodile dung.
If you liked what you heard today, then please do take the time to like, rate, or subscribe wherever you download your podcasts. You can follow us on Instagram, X, or Facebook, or why not drop us an email?
Bye.
Bye-bye.